The cold metal corridors of Horizon Station hummed with the quiet rhythm of distant machinery. Una Park stood motionless, her eyes fixed on the massive salvage yard, where broken starships waited like forgotten dreams. Her work overalls were worn, patches of grease telling stories of countless repairs. Around her, other mechanics rushed past, their attention captured by more glamorous projects, but Una saw something different. Between rows of twisted metal and fractured hull panels, one ship caught her attention. A vessel so damaged that most would have called it nothing more than space trash. It was larger than the typical scout ships, with an unusual asymmetrical design that suggested it wasn't from any standard galactic blueprint. Scorch marks covered its exterior, deep cuts and plasma burns telling a silent story of some long-forgotten battle. Most would have dismissed it immediately, but Una's trained eye saw potential where others saw only destruction. She approached, slowly, her hand reaching out to touch the cold metal surface. Something felt different about this ship. The hull seemed to have a strange warmth, almost like it was waiting to be discovered. Years of working in space had given Una an intuition about machines. This one was special. The salvage yard manager, a gruff alien with 3 eyes and scaled skin, watched her with obvious disinterest. "That thing's been here for 7 galactic cycles," he mumbled. "No one wants it, not worth the energy to break it down." Una didn't respond. Her fingers traced a complex series of markings along the ship's exterior, unusual circuit patterns. That didn't match any standard technological design she had seen before. Each trace revealed something new, a hidden complexity that most would have overlooked. She pulled out her diagnostic tablet, connecting it to the ship's dormant system. Most machines this damaged would show nothing, but faint energy readings flickered across her screen. Weak, barely alive, but present. The ship's original classification was barely readable. Worn letters suggested it was something called a Prototype X7, from a technological era long past. No records in the standard databases matched its unique configuration. Around her, the salvage yard continued its routine. Mechanical arms moved broken ships, sorting them for recycling or complete destruction. But this ship remained untouched, as if waiting for someone who could understand its true value. Una's colleagues laughed when she requested permission to examine the vessel more closely. "Another waste of time," they muttered. But she knew something. They didn't. This ship had a story, and she was determined to uncover it. Her initial scans revealed complex quantum matrices hidden beneath layers of damaged exterior plating. These weren't standard technologies. They represented something far more advanced than current galactic engineering standards. Something that suggested the ship was more than just a simple piece of machinery. As the station's artificial lighting cast long shadows across the salvage yard, Una made her decision. She would rebuild this ship, not because someone ordered her to, but because something inside her knew it was important. The ship seemed to respond to her touch. Faint electrical pulses emerged from its damaged systems, almost like a heartbeat. A machine breathing its first breath after years of silence. Most would call it impossible, a waste of resources. But Una Park was not most people. She saw potential where others saw only destruction. And in this moment, standing beside a ship that the entire galaxy had forgotten, she knew her greatest adventure was about to begin. Little did she know that this forgotten vessel carried secrets that could change everything. Secrets that would challenge everything known about technology, about humanity, and about the very nature of exploration itself. The first step was simple. She would need tools, specialized nanite welders, quantum circuit reconstructors, and most importantly, an unbreakable spirit of determination. Her journey was just beginning. The workshop buzzed with quiet tension as Una spread her tools across the workbench. Specialized nanite welders glimmered under the harsh station lights, each one carefully selected for an impossible task. Most engineers would have given up, but not her. J. Kim watched from a distance, his arms crossed and a look of skepticism etched across his face. "That ship is dead," he said simply. "Some machines can't be brought back to life." Una ignored him. Her hands moved with practiced precision, connecting diagnostic tools to the ship's damaged central system. Strange energy readings flickered across her screen, weak pulses that suggested something was still alive inside the machine. The first day of reconstruction was always the hardest. Damaged quantum circuits required delicate manipulation. One wrong move could destroy what little remained of the ship's core systems. But Una worked with a patience that bordered on meditation, her fingers moving like a surgeon performing a complex operation. Pieces that seemed hopelessly broken began to show signs of potential. Nanite welders reconstructed damaged sections, creating bridges between fractured technological systems. It was like watching a complex puzzle slowly come together, each piece revealing more of a hidden picture. Station engineers would stop by, watching her work with a mixture of curiosity and mockery. "Another waste of resources," they would whisper. But Una heard nothing except the soft hum of machinery coming back to life. As hours turned into days, the ship began to change. What was once a broken shell started showing signs of complex internal structure. Unusual energy signatures emerged. Quantum matrices that seemed to pulse with a strange kind of intelligence. Jay noticed it first. "The readings are impossible," he muttered, checking his own diagnostic tools. "These systems are adapting. They're not just being repaired, they're learning." Una smiled. This was more than just fixing a machine. This was bringing something back from the dead. The station's resource allocation system flagged her project multiple times. Each request for specialized materials was questioned, each hour of work scrutinized. But she continued, driven by something beyond simple mechanical repair. Nights became a blur of welding, connecting, reconstructing. The ship's exterior began to change, damaged panels replaced with new, stronger materials. But it was more than physical reconstruction. Something deeper was happening. Quantum circuits that should have been destroyed began to show signs of complex adaptation. They responded to Una's touch in ways no standard machine ever could. It was almost as if the ship was learning, growing, becoming something entirely new. Jay brought her coffee during long working hours, his initial skepticism slowly turning into something like wonder. "I've never seen anything like this," he admitted, one night, watching as another impossible connection was made. The ship's original design suggested it was more than a simple spacecraft. Complex technological markers hinted at something far more advanced, a prototype that was never meant to be understood by standard technological approaches. Weeks passed. The station's administrators began to take notice. What had started as a seemingly hopeless project was turning into something that challenged everything they knew about machine reconstruction. Unusual energy readings began to spread. Quantum matrices that should have been dead were showing signs of complex adaptation. The ship was no longer just being repaired. It was evolving. Una worked without breaks, her determination burning brighter with each passing day. This was more than a job. This was a mission. A chance to prove that nothing was truly beyond repair. As the final connections were made, something extraordinary happened. For a brief moment, the entire workshop went silent. The ship's systems flickered with a light that seemed almost alive. Jay looked at Una, a mixture of fear and excitement in his eyes. "What have you done?" he whispered. Una simply smiled. The reconstruction was complete. But their real journey was just beginning. The moment was sudden and unexpected. Una's hand touched a specific circuit and everything changed. A burst of blue-white energy exploded across the workshop. Diagnostic screens flickered wildly. Machines that had been silent for years suddenly hummed with impossible life. Jay jumped back, his eyes wide with shock. "Something's happening," he whispered. The ship's quantum matrix responded to Una's touch, like a living organism. Circuits that had been dead for decades began to pulse with strange energy. Complex algorithms started adapting, learning from her movements, her problem-solving techniques. Una remained calm. Her fingers continued their delicate work, almost as if she was communicating with the machine through touch alone. The ship seemed to breathe, its internal systems synchronizing in ways no engineer had ever seen before. Station sensors went crazy. Alarm systems blared in the distance. But inside the workshop, Yuna and Jay existed in a bubble of strange calm. The ship was becoming something more than a machine. Quantum matrices began to reconstruct themselves. Damaged memory banks started recovering lost information. It was like watching a brain slowly wake up after years of deep sleep. Each system, connected, each circuit found its purpose. "This is impossible," Jay muttered, checking and rechecking his instruments. The energy readings defied every known law of technological reconstruction. The ship was not just being repaired, it was learning, growing, evolving. Yuna noticed something strange first. The ship's internal systems were beginning to predict her next move. When she reached for a specific tool, a mechanical arm would already be positioning it. When she considered a complex repair technique, the ship's internal systems would already be preparing the necessary configurations. It was symbiosis. But more than that, it was something entirely new. Station administrators began to gather outside the workshop. Security protocols were activated. Strange energy signatures were spreading beyond the ship's physical structure. Something extraordinary was happening. The ship's original design became clear. This was no ordinary spacecraft. It was a prototype, an experimental vessel designed to adapt, to learn, to grow. But something had gone wrong in its original mission, something that had left it abandoned and forgotten. Until now. Quantum circuits began to display complex information, lost star charts, forgotten technological designs, fragments of a history that no one had remembered. The ship was recovering its own memory, piece by piece. Jay watched in amazement as Yuna continued her work. Her hands moved with a confidence that suggested she was no longer just repairing a machine, she was communicating with it. "We're not alone in this," she whispered. The ship's systems responded, not with words, but with a pulse of energy that seemed to say, "I understand." Station alarms continued to blare. But inside the workshop, a different kind of communication was happening. A machine was coming to life. Not through standard technological means, but through something far more complex. Human intuition, machine adaptation. Two systems becoming one. As the final connections were made, the ship's external lights began to pulse, soft at first, then stronger, like a heartbeat. Like something was truly awakening. Jay looked at Yuna. "What have you done?" he asked. She simply smiled. The awakening was complete. But their real journey was just beginning. The station held its breath. Something extraordinary had just happened, and nothing would be the same again. In that moment, a forgotten ship began to remember who it was, and Yuna Park stood at the center of a technological miracle that would change everything. Within hours, every communication network knew about Yuna's ship. Strange energy signatures spread like wildfire across galactic channels. The Interstellar Coalition's communication centers buzzed with urgent messages. Commander Hyun Choi received the first detailed report. His three-fingered hand crushed the digital projection, anger burning in his cybernetic eye. "This is impossible," he muttered. The ship that was supposed to be dead had become something else entirely. Quantum matrices that should have been destroyed were now functioning at levels beyond current technological understanding, and at the center of it all was one human woman. Yuna continued her work, seemingly unaware of the storm brewing around her. Jay watched nervously, monitoring the growing number of incoming transmission requests. "They're coming," he warned. The first diplomatic vessel arrived within 3 standard cycles. Sleek, aggressive, designed to intimidate. Representatives from multiple star systems wanted answers. How could a discarded ship suddenly become the most advanced technological artifact in known space? Threat assessments began immediately. Intelligence agencies from a dozen different civilizations started gathering information. Satellite scans, remote probes, every possible method of gathering data was deployed. But the ship responded to nothing. Only to Yuna. Massive compensation offers began to flood the station's communication systems. Billions of galactic credits, advanced technological exchanges, promises of unlimited research funding, each message more tempting than the last. Walk away, they told her. This is bigger than you. Una simply continued her work. The ship's defensive systems began to show strange capabilities. When unauthorized scan attempts were made, quantum shields would flicker into existence. Complex algorithms adapted faster than any tracking system could follow. Commander Choi's team prepared for intervention. Military-grade ships positioned themselves around the station, weapons charged, ready to seize what they believed was a potential technological weapon. But something was different about this vessel. It wasn't just a machine anymore. It was becoming something more. Jay watched in amazement as the ship's internal systems continued to evolve. Each moment revealed new capabilities, self-repair mechanisms that defied known scientific understanding, adaptive technologies that seemed to think and feel. Station administrators held emergency meetings. Some wanted the project shut down. Others saw potential for unprecedented technological breakthrough. Arguments erupted across communication channels. The ship remained silent, except to Una. Quantum matrices began displaying fragments of lost information, star charts from forgotten civilizations, technological designs that suggested capabilities far beyond current understanding. The vessel was remembering something important, something that some powerful people didn't want remembered. Diplomatic pressure increased. Threats became more direct. Military vessels gathered like predators waiting to strike. But the station's defenses, somehow enhanced by the ship's presence, remained impenetrable. Who are you? Commander Choi demanded during a direct communication attempt. The ship's response was simple, a burst of energy, a complex mathematical sequence, a message that said everything and nothing. Una understood, others would not. As tensions reached a breaking point, the ship continued its transformation, each moment revealing new potential, each system becoming something more than anyone could have imagined. The galaxy held its breath. A single human woman stood between powerful forces and a technological miracle. One ship, one moment, everything about to change. Jay looked at Una. What happens next? He asked. She simply smiled. The disruption was just beginning. Zorn warships dropped from faster than light space, their massive weapons charging. Commander Hyun Choi's flagship led the assault, believing they would easily destroy the reconstructed vessel. They were wrong. Una stood calmly in the control room. Her hand barely touched the ship's central interface when something extraordinary happened. Quantum shields materialized instantly, not like standard defensive systems, but living energy that adapted faster than computer calculations could track. The first missile approached. Instead of blocking, the ship's systems transformed the weapon's energy, redirecting it back toward the attacking vessel. One moment of contact, total system disruption. Jay watched in absolute shock. That's impossible, he whispered. The ship was no longer just a machine. It had become something else entirely. A living system that thought, adapted, responded with an intelligence beyond standard programming. Zorn commanders couldn't understand what was happening. Their most advanced tracking systems failed. Weapons became useless. The reconstructed ship moved with a grace that suggested sentience, not just mechanical response. Una's neural patterns seemed to synchronize with the ship's quantum matrix. When she thought about defense, the ship responded. When she considered movement, the vessel anticipated her intentions milliseconds before she completed the thought. Communication channels erupted with panic. Military networks crashed. Standard technological systems became useless against this new form of adaptive technology. Commander Choi's flagship tried multiple attack vectors. Each attempt failed more spectacularly than the last. The ship didn't just defend. It demonstrated a level of technological capability that suggested something far more complex was happening. It's learning, Jay said, watching the battle unfold. Every attack makes it stronger. Quantum matrices began displaying fragments of lost technological history, advanced design principles, forgotten scientific understanding. The ship was remembering its original purpose, a purpose far beyond simple space exploration. 3 Zorn warships disappeared in moments, not destroyed, simply removed from the current space-time configuration. The ship's defensive systems worked on levels that human and alien technology couldn't comprehend. Yuna remained calm. Her hand continued its gentle connection with the ship's systems, each moment revealing more of its true potential. Station administrators watched in disbelief. What had started as a simple reconstruction project had become something that would change galactic understanding forever. The battle lasted less than 17 minutes. When it ended, only Yuna's ship remained, untouched, unbroken, transformed. Interstellar communication networks went silent. How do you explain something that defies every known technological principle? Jay approached Yuna carefully. What have you done? He asked. She simply smiled. I fixed a ship, she responded. But it was more than that. Much more. Humanity had not just rebuilt a technological artifact. They had unlocked a potential that entire civilizations had overlooked. A system that could learn, adapt, evolve. The ship's quantum matrices began broadcasting a simple message across multiple communication frequencies. Not words, not language, but a complex mathematical sequence that suggested something profound. Potential beyond current understanding. Commander Choi's final transmission was simple. Stand down, he ordered. But no one was listening anymore. The reconstructed ship had become something new. A bridge between human potential and technological evolution. As galactic systems tried to process what had happened, one thing became clear. Everything was about to change. Yuna Park. One woman. One ship. A moment that would be remembered forever. The revelation was complete.